Thank you, musicians. Let me make a couple of announcements. This past week was pretty momentous for us living in this area. Susan's mom passed away on was it last Sunday night here? Yeah. She had been in a care facility for some time, as you know, and she was slipping a bit, and she just passed into heaven in the presence of Christ. So Susan and I will be traveling to California. She'll be buried with her husband. Her memorial service at the last church that she regularly attended, Magnolia Avenue Baptist Church. And it's taken a little bit of time to get that organized, but we expect a couple of our sons are coming down for the service, and Miles' sister-in-law's, I think her 3 sons are coming. So, and Susan's 2 sisters will be there, and some people in the church who knew B and stuff like that. So, be in prayer for us. We won't be here next week. We're actually flying back on Sunday. We're leaving on Thursday morning, coming back on Sunday. And Ty Barton will be sharing about his ministry on Mercy Ships. The other thing is we put our house up for sale. We actually never put up for sale sign on our front yard. And 8 days later, we have it under contract. We got to sign a contract on Friday. So we expect to be living there for another 60 days, and then, Lord willing, we'll move to Hazel Green, a mile closer to the church, way out in the country. But when that time comes, we'll let you know. But so I guess this past week was memorable. We lost someone we cared about, and we gained something that we were really anticipating for the future. We're going to build our kind of finishing house next to this apartment that we have out there. So we're looking forward to seeing what that turns out to be. Pretty excited about the whole affair, although it'll be wearying to move 2 more times in next year. So anyway, we'll get it done. We're in Exodus chapter 6 today. So take out your Bible and turn to Exodus 6. This starts in verse 9, goes all the way to chapter 7, verse 7. Nobody consulted me about how we divide chapters up. That's okay. It's just how it's divided up as I think about the story. I want to walk through this as we kind of explain our way through it. The text, in my opinion, touches on the whole topic of discouragement, for some even depression, and it also touches on the topic of spiritual leadership. And so those are our 2 topical things that come out of the text. But I want to walk through the text so that we don't skip stuff that's important. Moses begins the formal narrative of his encounter with Pharaoh, but he has to get past a certain point. That's why I call the message Moses Made Ready. God makes Moses ready.
Before you get started, can we say a special prayer for the city of El Paso? My dad actually went to high school in El Paso, and some of my siblings and I actually went to high school in El Paso, and the shooting that happened at Walmart, we actually knew people that were in the Sam's next door that were in lockdown when the shooting occurred, and we actually had a friend with kids who was scheduled to have a Walmart pick up there at that Walmart.
Okay.
And they actually weren't there because they were late getting out of the house. But it's kind of hit us pretty close without actually directly hitting us.
Yeah.
So,
You know any person who was involved?
not that we know at this point.
Let's pray for
Just a lot
that
of
situation.
people that were like really close to where it happened. So,
I know an old district attorney from that town who I went to school with. Father, thank you for safety. And as you said this morning, your love never fails. It lasts forever. So I pray that your caring hand will be on the people in El Paso, especially those who were involved in this shooting. What a tragedy. I pray for the town as they walk through this misery. And for those who bring spiritual guidance, give them all wisdom. We pray for families that were deeply affected by this and this loss. Pray for police officers, the investigation. Just give everyone grace for the journey that's before them, we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Thanks for bringing that up. Moses has not really started the story of his encounter with Pharaoh. There's an encounter in the story right here, but it's not really where it starts. Something's going on, and Moses gets pushed back. It's like, I'm a failure, I need to get out of here. You picked the wrong person. He goes through that whole scenario one more time. That's why I talk about this story in terms of God getting Moses ready. Okay? So, I want to start there. I'll divide the section into 3 pieces. It's on your insert in your bulletin. First of all, God's mission. That's verses 9 through 13. So let's start there. Verse 9 of chapter 6. Moses spoke thus to the people of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses because of their broken spirit and harsh slavery. So the Lord said to Moses, go in, tell Pharaoh king of Egypt to let the people of Israel go out of his land. And Moses said to the Lord, behold, the people of Israel have not listened to me. How then shall Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. But the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them a charge about the people of Israel and about Pharaoh king of Egypt, to bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Moses has relayed to the Israelites what God had said in Exodus chapter 6, verses 2 through 8. He told them what God said. But they had so much trouble, they wanted their old life back. You ever kind of face that situation? You're in a mess right now. And you go, oh, things are just like they were before this all happened. My oldest son was involved in a rescue this past week. And a young man, a Coast Guard guy, 25 years old, was hiking. He slipped, fell to his death. And my son, I don't know, at least 12 years ago, was in that same spot, slipped, and made it. He actually got stopped by a tree from falling into the rocks below. Had broken back, was in a back brace for 90 days and all that stuff. I honestly watched him roll him out of the emergency room onto the flight in Anchorage, and I thought, have I lost my son? The stuff that God does in our lives, so he was really rattled by that. It's like, you come this close to having things over. He's probably asking himself, why did I make it, not this guy? We want our old life back. The way things were before stuff happened, before things went crazy. And things went crazy, have gone crazy in the story. Moses goes to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh goes, get out of here, who's this God you're talking about? And he enlarges the challenge of the slaves to make their own bricks. Get your own straw. Get out of my fight. Get out of my courts. And of course, the taskmasters are very unhappy, and the people are getting whipped and stuff like that. So the people appeal to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, get out of my courts. They want their old life back. They're happy being slaves the way they used to be, not the way that they are right now. Things are just over the top, way too stressful. And Moses tells God, people are tired. So am I. This isn't going to work. The Hebrew text at the end of verse 9 indicates that they were discouraged. Look at the end of verse 9. Because of their broken spirit and harsh slavery. It's an interesting phrase in the Hebrew language which talks about discouragement that's leading towards depression, as it were. Things can be so bad that you're navigating through potential depression. And it's interesting, God does not respond to that at all. Moses says, let me tell you how I feel, and God says, let me tell you what you need to do. And so that's an interesting response. God says, look Look at verse 13. But the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and said, and gave them a charge about the people of Israel and about Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. It's almost as if God's saying, I don't really care at this moment how you feel. There is something I want you to do now. Moses has also lost sight of the goal. Distractions in the previous chapter and even the reappearance of God in chapter 6, verses 2 through 8. He has two more excuses as to why he can't get this done. He says, Israel has not listened to me, and I have uncircumcised lips, so that's why Pharaoh won't listen to me. So he has two more excuses. And after he says those two words, those two phrases right there, he's done making excuses. Something happens. But I want to talk to you just for a moment about discouragement. Discouragement is, first of all, it's real. It's absolutely real because it's rooted in two things, a broken spirit and harsh circumstances, verse 9. And I take that to mean that there are internal issues and there are external circumstances. Those two things are common. I mean, I bump into one of those things often. I don't bump into both of them together. I've been in circumstances that I'm not discouraged. But I've been in situations that are good, but I've been discouraged. I've been in ministry 42 years. Those things come up all the time. You walk out of a good board meeting, you walk out of a bad board meeting. You walk out of a good elders meeting, you walk out of a bad elders meeting. You walk out of a meeting with the missions committee or whatever else, you go, that was really good. Or it was bad. Or something's going on with some family in the church and it's just a disaster. Oh, you're kidding me. Things going so well. So circumstances have a way of bending us and making our feelings rise to the surface. And the circumstances are difficult in this story as well. One commentator thinks that this is the absolute lowest part of the whole story of the rescue. Because he surmises from the text that Moses is more discouraged than the people are. You know, when the leader is discouraged, in depression, and there were two old leaders that you have both heard of. David Martin Lloyd Jones, one of them wrote a whole book on spiritual depression, and then C.H. Spurgeon. The story of his depression was not unique. I mean, that famous evangelist who won thousands to Christ he was preaching, he experienced depression most of his ministry life. So people are just what they are. They just come that way. So first of all, discouragement is rooted in a broken spirit and harsh circumstances, an internal issue and an external issue. Second, discouragement is natural when plans fail. Well, I've made plans. And guess what? They didn't work out. Or when our goals are not met within the time frame. Those things can be very discouraging. Third thing I take out of this story, discouragement is a challenge to see with the eyes of faith and simply take the next step to obey God. God tells Moses, you know, I told you what I wanted you to do. I'm going to do this. In the story of Elijah, which is a story I really like, in 1 Kings 19, Elijah has just had the Mount Carmel experience, the serious spiritual high. He calls down fire from heaven. And he's like, what against all these people? This is great. He is fearless. And then he gets threatened by Jezebel, and he runs like a scared cat, all the way down, all the way through the whole country of Judah, down to Beersheba, and into the wilderness. He goes to the mountain of God, hides himself in a cave. I'm the last man standing, just take me out here. And in that story, at the end of the story, God tells him three things that I think are really important. But let me touch on this first before we get to that. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 10. So, to keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, he had this spiritual high as well. God puts this thorn in the flesh in his way, as it were, to keep him from getting conceited. A thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan, to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ can rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. That's Paul battling the discouragement of this miserable physical condition he finds himself in. And they speculate about what it is, but it was ugly and difficult. Just discouraged him all the time. Why do I have to battle this stuff? I'm serving God as best as I know how. Why do I have to battle this? Why is this in my way? In Philippians 3, verses 12 through 14, Paul writes, not that I have already obtained this, or am already perfect, but I press on to make it my own, because Christ Jesus has made me his own. Brothers, I do not consider that I have made it my own, but one thing I do. This is Paul rising up out of his discouragement, sometimes depression. I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. This is Paul battling discouragement in his spiritual walk. You ever get stuck in your spiritual walk with God? Flatline? Just going through the motions? Yeah, that happens to all of us. It's happened to me many times. And Paul said, I just press on forward. I just keep doing what God has called me to do and expect God to show up and appear. When God calls us to action, when God sets a vision before us, he intends to bring that vision to pass. You know, in Numbers 13 and 14, the people of Israel came to the promised land. They sent 12 spies in there. God said, I'm going to rescue you out of this country to take you to the promised land. For whatever reason, they just didn't believe it. I don't know. The giants over there, humans, were too much for them. And they all went back into the wilderness. They all only had one chance, and they all got assigned. Everybody who was over 20 years old died in the wilderness. And it says in the text, their carcasses were buried in the sand. What a miserable end. Moses is having one of those conversations with God, and Moses' personal issues are exposed. Look what he says at the end of verse 12. But Moses said to the Lord, behold, the people of Israel have not listened to me. You called me the leader. You told me I was the leader, and they're not even listening to me. Number one. Number two, how then shall Pharaoh listen to me, for I am of uncircumcised lips? Now back to the story of Elijah just for a moment. In that story, God does 3 things to get Elijah out of this mess, this morass of nonsense he's walking in. He said to him, I think it's verse 15, I have a job for you. I don't have a huge list of 25 things. I have 2 things for you to do. Go anoint Hazael, king of Syria. Go anoint Jehu, king of Israel. Okay, that's simple enough. I can remember 2 things. So off he goes. Second thing he says, I have a partner for you. His name's Elisha. And that's a pretty interesting part of the story. He just throws his mantle on him and keeps walking. And third, he says, oh, by the way, let me tell you the absolute truth. You are not the last man standing. There are 7,000 people who have not bowed their knee to Baal. So how does God deal with Elijah's depression or his discouragement? He gives him a simple task. He gives him a partner. And he gives him, at the end, all that stuff. He gives them the truth about the situation. So behind all that's God working in the Moses story. I'm going to give you the task all over again. You already have a partner, his name's Aaron, and I'll give you the third part, the truth, in a few minutes. We're coming to chapter 7. This is what I plan on doing. And I've often thought of that as a simple antidote to being discouraged or depressed. A simple task, a partner, someone that God brings along temporarily or permanently to walk with you, and he tells us the truth. He tells Moses, let me tell you what the truth's going to be. Now, you have to believe what God said. Well, where are those 7,000 people? I haven't met any of them in forever. They're there. God knows who they are. All right, let's move on to the second part of the text. Moses' ancestry. This is an interesting little vignette. Typical of ancient writers, whenever they want to change subjects or move to a different topic, they always insert a little ancestry, a little descendant list. Primarily to certify I really am the person that God has chosen for this task, and that's what this ancestry does. We're going to read through this just for a moment. It's laden with some hard names, but we'll get through it. Chapter 6, verse 14. These are the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. These are the clans of Reuben, the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jacob, Zophar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. These are the sons of Simeon. These are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generation, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The years of the life of Levi being 137 years. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei by their clans. The sons of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Years of the life of Kohath being 133 years. The sons of Merari, Mahali, and Mushi. These are the clans of the Levites according to their generations. Amram took as his wife Jochebed, his father's sister, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. The years of the life of Amram being 137 years. The sons of Izhar, Korah, Nepheg, and Zikri. The sons of Uzziel, Mishael, Elzaphan, and Sithri. Aaron took as his wife Elisheba, the daughter of Abinadab and the sister of Nashon, and she bore him Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Sons of Korah, Asir, Elkanah, and Abishaph. These are the clans of the Kohathites. Eleazar, Aaron's son, took as his wife one of the daughters of Putiel, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites by their clans. These are the Aaron and Moses to whom the Lord said, bring out the people of Israel from the land of Egypt by their host. He's saying, I just want you to know who we are. We are the ones that God has called. And here's our ancestry, etc., and our prodigy. It was they who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, about bringing out the people of Israel from Egypt. This Moses and this Aaron. It's a pretty typical thing that they never include all the names in the genealogy in the Old Testament. I think it's almost the exclusive rule. Genealogies are always a gathering of hit and miss. People are missing everywhere. They only named the first 3 sons of Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi. Levi was the third oldest. And they don't focus on Reuben and Simeon. They're basic sons, and then they move on to Levi. And they're very focused on him. He had 3 sons. And of those 3 sons, Kohath brings about Aaron. And that's all good and fine. But here's the concept. What people say about us and our past can be very hurtful. I want to touch on something, a couple of things in here, first of all. In verse 23, there's an interesting note. Aaron took as his wife Elisheba, the daughter of Abinadab and the sister of Nashon, and she bore him Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. By the way, we don't have a single note anywhere about what happened to Moses' two sons. And we do know that of Aaron's four sons, only two of them ended up serving God. Two of them went into the tabernacle and offered strange fire and were killed by the Lord instantly, dead. So only 2 out of the 6. That's a pretty ugly showing. For these people who are so significant in God's leadership plan, only 2 out of the 6 boys that came out of them actually served God well, that we know about. Let's go back to the story of Aaron. Elisha was from Judah, and her father and brother, Abinadab and Nashon, were ancestors of Jesus Christ. But get this. Moses and Aaron's mom, his parents were married by incest. What? They just dropped that in there for us. I was married to my father's sister. Well, technically, in Leviticus, I think 13 and 15, it says you can't marry your father's sister. It's just too close. It's incestuous. But that law hasn't been given by God yet. So Moses and Aaron are, I mean, I've met some people who've done some incestuous stuff. It's like, oh, this is awful and ugly. Here's what I take from that. What people say about us in our past can be very hurtful. Just can't. As a matter of fact, in John chapter 8, the Pharisees said, well, weren't you born out of prostitution? Where'd you come from? And Moses was confronted by some people who said, well, you're married to a woman of color. So people were making these kind of statements in the background. Some of them are recorded. I suppose many of them are not. But it does not have to stop us from serving God. That's the good news. If you knew everything about my past, you go, oh my gracious, Mark. If I knew everything about your past, and I go, oh, thank goodness I'm not you. Who really cares? Can God use me? He can. That's great news in the story. I think Moses put this in here for us for that reason. No matter what happened in our past, no matter how good or how bad it is, God can still use us. That's great news. To be used by God powerfully is an important piece of the puzzle of this whole mess. It's a choice that we must make. For some, it's a daily choice, and for others, maybe once in a lifetime, I don't know. But overcoming the challenges of our past is just overcoming the challenges of our past. That's the center section. That's what I take out of there. There's one more section. God's role in the mission. So look at verse 28. Let's read down to chapter 7, verse 7. On the day when the Lord spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, the Lord said to Moses, I am the Lord. I am Yahweh. I talked to you about chapter 3. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, all that I say to you. But Moses said to the Lord, behold, I am of uncircumcised lips. How will Pharaoh listen to me? He repeats it one more time. And the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and your brother Aaron shall tell Pharaoh to let the people of Israel go out of his land. And here's what God's going to do. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to me. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt and bring my host, my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great acts of judgment. The Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the people of Israel from among them. Moses and Aaron did so. They got over their discouragement, and they just did it. They just did as the Lord commanded them. Now Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. That kind of ends this section, because right now they're going to engage the enemy. Let's chit-chat about this, and then we'll talk about some spiritual leadership principles. Moses repeats his original excuse, and God does not respond. I think God puts this in to remind Israel and us that what was about to happen has nothing to do with Moses. Think about that for a minute. Moses actually believes it's about him. No. God can do whatever he wants to do through anybody. It's not about me. It's not about him. It's not about Moses. It's about God. That's an important thing to remember. God can do anything. One commentator writes, when Moses previously highlighted his inability to speak, Yahweh stated that Moses would be a God to fit to Aaron, and Aaron would be Moses' mouthpiece. In chapter 4, verse 16. Echoing this answer with interesting modifications, Yahweh now affirms that Moses will be a God to Pharaoh, and Aaron will be his prophet. In chapter 7, verse 1. The description of Moses as God to Pharaoh is highly ironic in light of how Egyptian kings viewed themselves as being divine. By calling Moses God, Yahweh is beating Pharaoh at his own game. It's not the king of Egypt who is God, rather it's the shepherd, the leader of slaves, who is God. Unquote. There are a couple of important statements in these verses that warrant just a moment of attention. First of all, verse 2. You shall speak. There's some pretty definitive first verbs in here that are important to hear. You shall speak. It's not optional. Second one in verse 3, I will harden. It's not optional. I'm going to do that. I'll take care of it. Third, Pharaoh will not listen, verse 4. Verse 4, I will lay my hand on Egypt. And finally, verse 5, Egyptians will know. 5 very strong verbs that says, I'm in charge of all of this stuff. Don't question me. The real purpose of what God is saying is to remove Moses from angst that he had anything to do with what the outcome of this was all going to be about. This outcome is not about you. He said, it's about me. That's it. We may think this is repetitive, but for those who heard this story and the few who could read it, then it would have been an important reminder. Now, Moses is finally ready to do what God called him to do. It says it at the end, on verse 7 right there. Moses and Aaron did so. Okay, exactly, just do what I told you to do. Obey. And Moses was 80 years old, Aaron was 83. Hopefully I don't have to wait that long to obey God. I want to remind you before we turn to the question of leadership, we'll spend a few minutes there and we'll be finished. This is the second time that God tells Moses, I will harden Pharaoh's heart. I want to remind you what we talked about last time. What does that mean? We must remember that we are either the slave of God and his will, or the slave of Satan and his will. There is no middle ground. I'm the slave of myself and I do whatever I want. No, you actually are the slave of Satan. You do what he wants. He just clueless. True. Unless God steps in, you have no other choice but to be the instrument of Satan. And God has no intention of stepping in and changing Pharaoh's mind. Therefore, he is at the mercy of Satan. He's going to do what Satan wants him to do. Bring about the entire destruction of an entire nation of people. What insane person would send his army into this Red Sea with this giant wall of water stacked up? What insane person would do something like that? Yeah, Pharaoh did. Let's turn to the final issue of spiritual leadership. Moses is considered by many, even in ancient historians who agree that he lived, to be the greatest leader of the ancient world. What he accomplished was just staggering. And in the Old Testament, I mean, you could put David in there, but Moses did something that was just unheard of. He actually took a group of people out of one country and made them a nation, prepared to be a nation in another place, which God took for them. So it's an amazing story. Moses is a great spiritual leader, and yet we don't think about him that way. But I want to stop here for a moment. Moses helps me process leadership issues. Moses had made some poor choices when he was around 80. He killed a complete stranger. He became the leader of sheep on the backside of the desert for 40 years. He made those choices when he was 40, and now he's 80. Gus, I got you exactly where I want you. Now I can use you. What do I see? I see three things in that story that kind of help me with leadership issues. The first one, unbelief, disobedience, and discouragement arise from weak character and harsh life experiences, or thinking that everything depends on me for success. People don't walk through life and never encounter this stuff. Leadership has to overcome those issues. Things just go crazy. Moses has finally overcome those issues. I think he finally believes God. Does he relapse? Oh, yeah. But he has finally overcome those issues. Leaders know how to battle unbelief, disobedience, and discouragement, and follow God. I don't find that concept in the New Testament on the surface, but I find this concept deep in the Old Testament. Second, mature leaders obey first. Moses has finally stepped up and just, okay, we'll just do it. See what happens. It's important that we always obey first. Demonstrating that they have learned to battle inner brokenness and their own limitations. What I think about myself, how I feel about the circumstances around me, really does not matter. It can't matter if God's going to do it. There are some pretty amazing people who've done YouTube clips, and it's like, wow. A person's missing their arms and legs, and is a public speaker in high demand. How does that happen? You seen that guy? He's pretty amazing. What God can do with Johnny Erickson, mind-blowing. You think they have internal brokenness and external circumstances that limit them? Oh my goodness. What woman who went through that experience would expect that a man would marry her just to take her from place to place to publicly speak whenever she wanted to? He's got a jewel coming in his way, but he got this. Third, lack of faith in the voice of God and disobedience to the will of God are very serious matters for anyone in leadership. If someone in spiritual leadership cannot hear the voice of God and does not instantly obey the will of God, they should not be in leadership. They should not be in leadership. It's really interesting. I may have alluded to this story before, and then we'll close. In our last church, the Christian school had been started by our church, and they wanted to come back and use our church building for classroom space and build some more stuff at a gymnasium. And everyone's all excited about this, and I said, we got to stop right here. And we need to fast and pray for the next 2 weeks and see what God's telling us to do. It's really interesting. I don't have any idea how many people fast and pray. But we got back together and almost completely together, almost unanimously, we decided this is not gospel. Okay, we know the will of God. Move on. They almost unanimously said, no, this is not gospel. It demonstrates, okay, we can hear the voice of God and we're going to obey what God wants us to do. Somebody's going to get land and build a school somewhere else. Spiritual leadership falls in that category. We'll come to the story of Moses' encounter with Pharaoh next week, 2 weeks from now. Be in prayer about that. It's a challenge. It's a story that we pretty well know. And God will just make fun out of Pharaoh. And the people of Egypt will go, wow, this guy's a buffoon. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your word. We gather insights and all kinds of valuable feedback for our lives. I pray for someone who's here today who might be discouraged. They're battling it. They're battling the external circumstances and the internal feelings. I pray that you will encourage them today with maybe a partner, someone who will walk with them, that you will give them a simple, easy to accomplish assignment, and then remind them of the truth, that you really are in control. And Lord, if you're challenging any one of us to spiritual leadership in our homes, in our church, where we work, to higher levels of leadership in our community or whatever else, I pray that some of the things we talked about today will speak to our hearts and help us to be the men and women you want us to be. So Lord, use the story today to unpack for us the things of God. Thank you for reminding me today, reminding us that there is nothing outside of your control. There's nothing going on that you are not managing well. We submit to it in Christ's name.